What's up, guys? Welcome back to my story segment. This is going to be The Castle of Heaven and Two Towers, which is of course based on Lumia. If you haven't seen the first part, which was Crimson Moon's fairy tale, I highly recommend you watching that first because this won't make any sense and it'll kind of be spoilers. So without any interruptions, let me get straight into it. So on a normal day in the Light Palace, we have Aesop, the princess tutor, just trying to tutor both Grimm and Lumia on some nonsense they don't care about. He's kind of all like, well, in the ancient times, blah, 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 blah. And Grimm's kind of just reading his book, and Lumia's just kind of like slouching and just like, oh my god, I really don't want to be here right now. And he's kind of like, well, when you guys are going to be king and queen, this is super important, blah, blah, blah. And they're just kind of like, well, we don't really care about that stuff, we just want to have fun. And then all of a sudden, Lumia actually ends up waking up, and this is actually all a dream, so Grimm's not actually here. And Aesop's talking to her, and he's kind of like, oh, well, you know, all you really do is sleep and like slouch around. You're going to be queen one day, you have to take this more seriously. And she's kind of just like, well, forget anything you're saying right now, because I just remembered my brother Grimm went on this journey to fight Dracula. So what's the update on that? And he's kind of like, you know, well, everything with Grimm will be fine. He's really strong, and he's a really, like, you know, pure-hearted guy. He'll be able to vanquish the evil. Flashback to when Grimm and Little Red were going on their way to save Pandora. They cross a village that's just like a regular village, and the people seem to be a little bit worried because it was apparently like haunted by demons in the past or something, and so they're like, oh my god, Dracula's return is the return of these demons, blah blah blah. And they come across this prophet who's kind of like, what's up guys, like I'm just this like, you know, totally not evil prophet. I just, you know, see things with my totally not evil book that's like gonna bring everything back from the graveyard and cause true havoc upon the world. And they're kind of just talking to him. He's kind of like, well, yeah, you know, my book shows fortunes, and I can see that you will defeat defeat Dracula. And, you know, yeah, Dracula will be defeated. Like, not particularly saying everything's going to be fine and dandy, but yeah, you guys are going to save Pandora and everything, you know, Dracula's going to be defeated. And Little Red's kind of just trolling him, like, oh, well, yeah, well, duh, we're going to beat him. It's me and Grimm, you know, we're the homies, so of course we're going to win. So they just kind of go on their way and end up eventually, of course, saving Pandora, and they leave. So while the prophet's still in the village, we see Fault Gold just come on a giant dragon, apparently, just falls through the sky, and he's Abdul's best friend. That's how I refer to him, because of course, you know, like, they can't just be like comrades of evil, they have to be best friends. And then he's like, I brought Grubalesta for you, Abdul, it's exactly what you wanted. And he's kind of like, yes, my best friend Fault Gold, you've never let me down. And this is kind of really funny to me because, just side note for a second, Abdul and Bahamut are like the most hated rulers to play against, and it's really funny how they're genuinely like the evil duo. I think that's hilarious. Like, I was thinking about it earlier, and I was like, this is really funny. Like, Necronomicon and Abdul, and like Bahamut with any burn is, you know, obviously the worst. And it's just funny that they're like best friends. So he gives Grubalesta to Abdul, and he's kind of like, oh, I can feel the power soaring through me. And of course he then J-activates into, you know, who he truly is, which is of course Abdul. And they're like, okay, we're going to head towards the Tower of Despair, which is technically made by the Great Ones, which are like the Cthulhu's, but he's gonna try to take residence there. Fast forward back to the Light Castle where Aesop and Lumia were talking. They're kind of just like, you know, well, yeah, everything's gonna be fine. And then out of nowhere, a dimension opens to like the side of them, like just, you know, like right here perfectly. And Alice comes out of nowhere, and she's kind of like, what's up guys? And they're like, what do you know, who are you, what are you doing here? She's like, there's no time to explain. Grimm, before losing consciousness, I guess sends some kind of signal or fairy tale or kind of story to Alice explaining what's going on, and saying that, you know, like, even though Dracula's destroyed, Little Red kind of betrayed him, and all this stuff is going on. And so she's kind of like, well, we have to go now save the world. And Aesop explains that Lumia is the restorer of stories, whereas Grimm is the narrator, so she's the only one that can do this, but she doesn't yet have the power to. So Alice tells her, well, you know, luckily for me, Grimm entrusted me his will in the form of also a stone. So Mujdart, if you were to resonate with it, you would technically awaken as a ruler as well. So Lumia takes the will of Mujdart, and that transforms her into, you know, the actual Lumia where she's all powerful. And Aesop also tells her where there's also Almeria, which is technically what it's called, within this castle. So if you resonate with that too, you'll become even stronger, and you'll be able to, you know, go stop Abdul and everything, because they now know that that's the main issue, and they can see the Tower of Despair like you know, returned with all of its evil somewhere off to the side. And this part's really, really sad. It made me feel really, like, kind of just like really upset inside because I really like get really into the lore. But Alice tells Lumia that, you know, you're gonna need something to fight. So this book that she has is actually she gives her this, which is Grimm the Avenging Fairy Tale. You can notice that although this is human because it's Grimm, it also has fairy tale, which isn't the case with the King Grimm. And that's because this isn't actually Grimm the person, it's Grimm the story. So this is the story of Grimm entrusted kind of in a book, and that's what Alice entrusts to Lumia to use to fight. So she kind of has like the last will of her brother, and now she's like getting really emotional. She's kind of like, you know what, I have all this power now, we're gonna go stop this because nobody messes with my brother and gets away with it. So they travel to the Tower of Despair, and they're totally ready to destroy Abdul with the power of his Screw Ballesta and also the power of his Necronomicon. So he's kind of like ready here. It kind of looks like those Mortal Kombat towers, but avoid that. Yeah, so he's over here, and they're kind of like, we've come to destroy you. And they also actually need the power of Pandora, which is really weird because this part wasn't really well explained, but she's now sealed inside the tower. And I'm just thinking, like, this girl has the worst luck ever. She's sealed inside of a forest, now she's sealed inside of this tower. Like, just let her go. Like, she can just live a normal life. I don't know if it's because she discards cards out of your hand and that's just evil or whatever, and she kind of had it coming to herself, but she's like locked up throughout this entire story, and they keep having to rescue her. She's like Peach. So they're fighting, and this is what's going on here. They're all trying to get this going, and during this time, Flash, whoosh, everything disappeared. Okay, so during this time, you will have the Tower of Despair also happens to lead to Rafrath, which is the castle in heaven. So the only way to get there is to go through the Tower of Despair because it's so high, it reaches so high in the clouds, you can go to the castle of heaven from there. So Little Red is traveling up this tower while, you know, Lumia is fighting Abdul or whatever, in hopes of getting to the castle of heaven where Crimson Girl in the Sky, which is the real Little Red, of course, is there. So once she gets there, Crimson Girl is like, oh, I knew it. You're the one that's been kind of, you know, stealing my identity. And like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this, you know? And Little Red, the Wolf Girl, is such a good liar that she's almost fully convinced herself that she is the Little Red. So she believes that if she was to kill Crimson Girl, that she would kind of take on that persona and actually become the real Little Red. So in order to do so, she kind of shows her true self, which is Little Dread. And that's kind of what she names herself, just like as a final troll to Crimson Girl, so that she can take her out finally and kind of steal her identity. And that's actually where the art for Duel of Truth comes to play. So Duel of Truth actually says the real fight took 3 days. So they fight for 3 days in order to kind of you know, come to a conclusion of who's going to win, because this is Dragon Ball Z and they're both extremely powerful and they have to kind of be like soaring through the sky, punching each other like a million times. And while Crimson Girl kind of seems to be losing, and during this time she realizes that the only thing she could do, because during this fight the castle's like slowly falling from the sky because Abdul's negating its power with the spiral, so it's not able to, and that's not actually a joke, like legit he's actually negating Castle of Heaven and it's slowly falling from the sky. So Little Dread knows that the only thing she can do is to give the rest of her power to the Feet-Sing Stone that's in this castle, which also I'm not 1,000,000% sure if that's accurate or not, because I know Zero's guarding the 6 True Stones, and, well, 5 True Stones, and if those True Stones happen to be in this castle, shouldn't Zero be there, like standing right in front of it? I'm not actually sure how this is like 100% going to play out, because there's like little faint areas here and there that are like kind of empty. But so she gives the last of her power to the Feet-Sing Stone, releasing Feet-Sing, and then she becomes the Pure Stone in its place so that there's no like lack of balance. And so Feet-Sing is released. The Crimson Girl kind of, I guess, I don't know, it doesn't really clarify if she like either passes out or, you know, she gets sealed inside the stone. I don't know if she's like dead in stone form or if she can be released, but that's what happens with that section. And then at the fallen gates of Rafrath, because of what happened with this fight and the fact that the tower collapses, I mean the castle collapses, a black moon appears at the gates and all these different great ones start marching out. So this is kind of the release of the Cthulhu. That tower was kind of like binding all of this together. Well, the True Stones were too. And the release of Feet-Sing kind of messes everything up. The fall of the castle messes everything out. And all the Cthulhu start marching out. So fast forward back to Lumia and Alice's fight against Abdul, of course. While they're fighting, they realize that, you know, Lumia is going to have to use a lot of her power to be able to stop him. So she kind of uses like a final like big attack, which kind of causes her to be really weak, and that makes her have to rely on Pandora, which she was like once again locked in the castle, and her power kind of she has like this new box that she can put stuff in. So as Lumia attacks Abdul and kind of finishes him off, Lumia knows that she's gonna like pretty much disappear. So her only choice is to go within Pandora's box, which is of course then made into this Pandora. So if people don't know, because Lumia had the will of Grimm with Mujdart, when she went inside of the box, so did technically the will of Grimm, and that's this little egg thing that she's holding out of her box. It's pretty much the will itself of Lumia and Grimm in the form of hope. And for those who don't know, Grimmia is actually just a fusion of Grimm and Lumia. So this is what happens if that will was to be released and kind of how do I say, like humanized, I guess, like made into a physical form. So that's why Grimmia is named that and why it seems so much like Grimm and Lumia. So she becomes the Weaver of Myth, and so she now has Lumia and Grimm's faith, and Alice is kind of like, oh my god, she can see outside the Tower of Despair that all those Cthulhus are coming out, so she knows that her only choice is now to kind of just figure out another way to now stop all of the Cthulhu, or the Great Ones I should say, because for those who don't know, Cthulhu is actually like one great one. It's the one on the Dark Pulse picture that looks kind of like an octopus. Cthulhu is not technically supposed to be like a race, you should say. It's more of just kind of like one of them, and they're called the Great Ones. So Lumia kind of just looks up to the moon, which is now blue because the evil's vanquished, and kind of says, oh, Kaguya, I guess we're doing a good job, right? Which is kind of like she's kind of like sighing in the thought of, man, like we did defeat Dracula and we did defeat Abdul, but now all this is going on. And during this time, of course, Feetsing was released, so now Feetsing needs to realize what's going to be going on, and that will be continued in the story of Moon Priestess Returns. So that was the story of the Castle of Heaven and Two Towers. If you guys haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do so you can see the Moon Priestess Returns tomorrow that I'm going to be uploading, and everything else coming out for the rest of the week. Vingolf is still coming. Some people think that it was pushed back, but it's actually now confirmed that it wasn't. All of that was kind of just like a miscommunication. So Vingolf, Millennia of Ages, and Faria and the Melgis structure decks are still coming out this week, so I'll have all the coverage for that, as well as Moon Priestess Returns, like I said, tomorrow, the story of that. If you guys have any suggestions, please let me know, because I'm new to this whole story thing too. I normally don't trust myself to do like how to plays or whatever, because I'm not the best explainer. So if you guys have any kind of advice you can give me that'll help me maybe explain this a little better or anything like that, please do, and I will catch you guys next time.